Hello and welcome to another End User Talk podcast. I'm your hostess, Jamila, your Lady in Tech. Hello and welcome to the End User Talk podcast. I'm your hostess, Jamila, your Lady in Tech. And as always, we have another amazing guest on the podcast today. I want to welcome Doc Rock, or Doc, to the show. And how are you doing today?
Good. Fantastic. Aloha.
All right. Well, I'm glad that I have you. Honestly, you are one of the first individuals that when I started getting into podcasts, you're one of the first that I listened to. And before we go any further, I'm going to have those who may not know who you are, if you'll give us a brief intro.
I am a creator. That's my tagline. I am a creator. I got into the creative space because, typical kids from around the way, we thought that, being a hip hop star was going to get us somewhere and get us out of the hood. I ended up joining the military so that I could afford to go to college and things like that. And while I was in there, I just discovered I really discovered my love for tech there. Bought a computer, used to drive it around on the wheelchair in the hospital at the hospital. I would doc and paramedic, get it? That's where it comes from. So I just, wheeling into the emergency room, and at lunch, I would be in there just messing around. Started out, with making T-shirts for all of the other units on base for any competitions that we would have, and then got into doing the websites and taking pictures and doing videos, and I just became a AV nerd through basically trying to market my own, hip hop group and, help out with other units on base, promote the various things that they were into, all of the soldierpreneurs. I was just helping everybody out with their graphics and their websites and flyers. And just got stuck into it. And I got lucky and got called up to help a buddy of mine do a radio show. Ended up doing radio for years, almost 15 years, have some TV background, in that time space. So when podcasting and YouTube creation became a thing, I already had the technical skills. So I just became a creator because it was just another outlet for, creative people got to flex.
Right. Well, that sounds amazing. It's so, it's always interesting to hear how individuals, I guess, developed into whom they are now as far as their first introduction into tech. Clearly tech is still one of those things that is, some people just don't understand it. It can be overwhelming, but I always get a kick out of how individuals were first introduced to technology. And clearly technology is so broad and it's so vast. And this day and time, it's kind of overlapping with other things. As you mentioned, with back in the day, it was, you were either listening to the radio or watching TV. If you weren't reading the newspapers and things of that nature, but things have kind of overlapped. And so you've got all of these skills that you've obtained in other areas. Now they can apply. So now we have podcasting, and there are various roads to podcasting. But to bring it back to how I became aware of Doc Rock was through Tua, or the unofficial Apple weblog.
Wow. Blasphemy.
You do not understand the feels, the synapses that go off. That was my introduction to podcasting, and listening to Tua every Tuesdays, I believe is when it used to air.
Yep.
I used to be so hyped up because I was new to technology. I was new to Apple products, and that is where I got all of my information. And then I heard Doc Rock on there. I used to love your commentary, and you would always end the show to aloha.
Yep. That's super funny, man. Yep. That's to aloha. That was us.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And my heart was crushed. You do not understand how lost I was, because I'm like, it was new for me to be able to hear about the latest tech news. And when you're a newbie in that world, getting the correct information, your resources, where are you going to go to get information about these products or these services or how-tos? Where do you get that information? And that podcast, it opened up a world of enlightenment for me. And let me just ask you, how did that union begin for you?
Okay, so super random. They used to do a Sunday show called the Talkcast, and they was using the application Recorded with TalkShoe. So it allowed us to basically call in on like a party line, like from back in the day when you used to, call everybody up on Wonderphone. And so Mike and Kelly, Steve Sandy, the original crew, Victor, and Christina Warren, film girl now, they would do this call every Sunday, and you could call in as a listener and, pose a question or answer a question or do whatever. So I was just a heavy member of their community. And, I would always either ask questions or answer questions that were sort of provocative, or I would negate just like common beliefs about something that are normally wrong, but are very popular. To me, that's one of my favorite things to do, is debunk a very popular or common myth, because people run with something that they've been taught without really fully vetting it. And they just like the fact that I would counterpoint some stuff. And then so I was at Macworld one year, we were all hanging out, and Victor, the editor, just says, "Hey, what do you feel about writing for us?" And I was like, huh, what? And then he goes, "Yeah, you want to write for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "Cool. And since you're so good at being on the talking part of things, we want to do videos and we want to do a podcast, but all of us, we're like, mic shy or camera shy. We don't really want to do it. So guess what your job is?" And I was like, "Oh, wait, okay, what?" So that's what happened. Victor threw me under the bus, and I gladly took it because it was fun and I liked it. And so Steve and I did that forever until AOL had this harebrained idea that they were going to merge us with Engadget, and that lasted a week.
And you know what? You are name dropping. I remember TalkShoe and Talkcast. Macworld. There's just so, what do you call it?
Events.
Man.
Those events were so good. Nostalgia.
Yeah, it is so nostalgic, and no one, if you weren't there, you just don't understand.
Yeah, it's just
so
a different
excited.
type of conference. Like, you go to these bridal expos or these food and, whatever expos, and Macro is a different space. I mean, some of the craziest, nerdiest conversations would just break off. You would, like the original Mac podcasters, like, Adam, basically, now why did I just forget Adam's name? Adam and I have been doing podcasts together for like 15 years now. It just went funny. But Adam from Mattcast, Adam Christensen, like we're all hanging out at breakfast. Me, Adam Christensen, David Sparky, Katie Floyd, like all of the hardcore Mac people. Just out Merlin Man. We're all having breakfast at Mills Diner and just enjoying the life and going to sing karaoke after. I know you people say karaoke, but it's karaoke. I speak Japanese. So it's, it was just a thing. And so some of my favorite people in the world, some of my still closest friends, all came from the Mac conference tracks back in the day.
I mean, yeah, it's just, you know what? And I guess Macworld for, not, a techie, I guess nerdy sci-fi people would be able to relate more with this discussion, but it's just like, the Comic Cons, things of, it's exactly. It's just like those. And, of course, the anime is really big, right? Well, I'll say it's big. It's becoming bigger here, and more awareness is being brought to the States. It's been around for years, clearly, but those individuals who enjoy doing cosplay and just conferences like that with like-minded individuals in whatever your space is, and that was the gathering grounds for tech-minded people. So it was definitely. I used to love hearing about all of the updates and that back from the commentary.
Oh, those are the
from,
best.
man, I'm telling you.
Because you come back from those things with so much energy, right? You're so juiced up and you got to get this out. I'm a strong believer in the way to learn something is as soon as you learn it, teach it to 3 other people as soon as possible, and then you'll learn it forever. Like you won't be like, this is one of those things that I learned and forgot. That's because knowledge is designed to be shared, right? So like as soon as you get it, you teach somebody. So when we would come back from those conferences, we couldn't wait to tell everybody like what was coming and get things going. And we got the beta version of the app and we're playing with it. And, you know, we can't wait till this is out. Or the worst one's an embargo. The company says you can't talk about this until this date. And you're sitting there itching with all of this information.
Right.
It's just burning up inside your pocket like Santa Claus. I'm like, come on, let me just tell him. Can I tell him, please? You know, and then they say, okay, on June the 4th, you can let it out. And then just be like a balloon pop. Here it comes.
Oh, and those conversations are so engaging and everybody's giving their point of view and just, I miss it, you know, unfortunately COVID, you know, stopped a lot and, you know, who knows, maybe things will start up again and we can kind of bring these things back to fruition. Now, clearly you have the South by Southwest, in Austin, and then of course the different conferences that take place in Las Vegas. I don't know how that's going to work in the future, but it's always good to hear about these new, even if you're not someone that's particularly going to use the different products, services, and or gadgets. It's just so amazing how technology, the depths that people go with their minds thinking up of different products and services for, whether it's entertainment or to make life and business easier, you know, or more efficient. It's just overwhelming. Now you stated that after that, you know, things just kind of blew up. What exactly did you do or how did that affect you in how you moved going forward?
It kind of gave me 2 things that I kind of fully understood after Tua, because part of my job, of course, was, you know, writing about all the apps and, you know, I was kind of heavy on the iOS circuit, you know, like this is what your iOS apps are going to be. And, these are the cool tools that you can use to grow your space and things like that. As I would go to the events with all the other tech writers of the time, I realized at the event, there's myself, there's Soldier Knows Best, and Andrew Edwards, and like one other person. So I was like, I'm in these conferences with thousands of folks, and the people of color that are doing that is 5 of us. I mean, and then I seen this little kid come on talking about he was going to be a tech guy, and I just remember looking at him and his eagle eyes hiding in his room with his tiny little Canon Rebel talking about, you know, his initial thoughts on the iPhone or whatever. And I was like, young Marquez, man, the space is going to be a little foreign because there's not a lot of us around, but I hope you do well, you know? And then I left and I went to Japan for a little bit. And when I came back, he was growing up. And I was like, this is cool. And Soldier was kind of at the top of his game. I was kind of pulling away from it for a little while. I went to go work at Apple. We weren't allowed to do, you know, this type of writing out to the public space, so to speak. But I just like, I hope Marquez doesn't get jaded like us or doesn't get the beat down, you know, from the comments or from the community or just from people not listening to them or shutting doors or wanting them to do like, let's just say very stereotypical things. And then now look at him and he's like super huge. And it reminded me that sometimes going in with the eyes of not realizing that somebody else is trying to tell you what to do, you have a little bit more of a space, like you're open. So you're writing your own canvas, if you will. And so I really respect what Marquez has been able to do. I swear I remember his first videos as a little kid. He's like 13 or 14 years old in a tiny little room talking about tech. And I was like, man, I hope they don't jade him like it's jaded us. And now he's like atop of the food chain. So yeah, I think that's what it was for me when I decided to come back. Is I wanted to make sure that our kids underneath us could look up to people like us and realize there is a space for us, and it doesn't have to be like a Black only tech thing, right? Soldier wasn't like that. I wasn't like that. The couple of the guys that were in, you know, Black creators in tech, they were being Black only tech creators, and you don't have to do that. But I think they made us feel that way back in the day.
You know what, that is definitely an interesting segue. That's one of the things that I definitely struggled with. Listening to podcasts. First and foremost, this is what blew my mind: is you're listening to a podcast, and this individual on the other end of the mic is basically giving you a snapshot or a summary of things that I could possibly have already been using in my life, or things that could be useful. And all this person is doing is talking. And I'm on the receiving end, and I'm listening to this person's opinion, their summary on what this product, service, or program does. And yet they're getting all of this awareness. But again, this is something that seems fairly simple, but why don't I see more people of color doing it? And I will speak specifically to the Black community, because how hard is it to do this? And we know that there are people in these spaces that have just as much expertise, knowledge, the personality, the education, and the ability to reveal this information to an audience of listeners that are seeking. But why aren't there more Black men and Black women? Or I can only speak to that because that's who I am. I see other racial ethnic groups there, but there aren't many of us here. I used to look at the Apple keynotes and the WWDC, and you know how they pan the audience?
Yep.
I'm like, clearly as big of as big and as huge as and as broad as this space is, you mean to tell me that I can't pick out Black people in the audience?
I think a lot of that starts in the school systems. We oftentimes don't get access to that type of computer stuff, in the school systems, because our school systems are just being sort of held back in a large way. I think another thing is, before, when you would look up the food chain, like, you didn't see there was a space for you. One of the biggest things in history to ever happen, I guess, to me, was when Lisa Jackson got plucked from the EPA to come and head up Apple into the environmental section. And I was like, there's a lady who's only a few years older than me, who is now a vice president at Apple. And her job isn't something that you wouldn't normally attach to one of us.
Right.
Her job is to make sure that Apple is using products that are good for the earth and taking care of the environment, and, so forth, so on, et cetera. And I was like, man, okay, Lisa Perez Jackson, clap, clap, clap. Now I know who I can count as my avatar, if you will, like what I want to see coming from other people. And I thought, I got to do my thing to make sure that we get that now. Now, me and my tech nerd friends, we have a long bet as to who is Steve's replacement. And I'm the only one that put in the chip for Lisa Jackson. But if Tim retires and they pick her over, like, Federighi or Eddie Q or somebody, that will be a game freaking changer. It just will. And I just think, a lot of us didn't think we could write until Langston Hughes. And then I guess the other part that blows my mind is, I also understand, and to answer to your question, I don't like this word, but it is, the term of art right now. Nobody talked about it until that long ago, even though Dr. Rosenkrantz research is really old, but we just started talking about imposter syndrome in the last couple of years. But it's a true story. When I hear things like Maya Angelou had imposter syndrome, I'm like, what? Like, you're a queen. Like, how did you have imposter syndrome? I get it. Marginalized folks, male, female, people of color in general, the alphabet community, like anyone who's been marginalized will second guess themselves just because of the things that other people have said about themselves. So when I hear like, Einstein had, imposter syndrome. I'm like Einstein, but then you got to remember, he was a German Jewish guy come to the U.S. at a time where that's not a good look. You know what I mean? So even he had it. So I think you got to first understand that it's a thing, not it like control you, get control of it, and just take the self-talk out back and beat it like when you was bad in church and grandma used to set you straight. That's what you have to do to the horrible self-talk.
And you're right. You know what? Being the first of anything, or you're the first to be groundbreaking, or the first to be allowed in a particular space, or to do a certain thing. Clearly the naysayers are going to be there, and you have this amazing responsibility and pressure on your shoulders that, who wants to fail? Who wants to be embarrassed? You're kind of a trailblazer, and it's very, I think that also is what kind of fosters that imposter syndrome as well. You have all of this pressure on your shoulders, and you've got a whole community of individuals who are looking at you for inspiration. They're looking at you, looking for you and to you to pave the way for maybe them, or the generations that are coming behind us, wherever we are. And success is what, we're always striving to be a success. And you might be a subject matter expert in this area, but, there's always that question. Are you the true fit? Are you the best face in order to represent whatever this is? And, all of that doubt, and if you don't have the right support around you, it will crumble. And like you said, failure, we look at it as something that is completely disruptive, and it can throw you off your game. But we also need to look at failure as a means of recognizing the human element. You can only do so much. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You can only do so much, and you have to be confident in the things that you can do, and then also not be afraid to be challenged. So you failed. You know what? I'm going to learn from that failure, and I know not to do that again. I know not to put myself in that particular predicament or situation, and I'm going to grow and be redeveloped. And now when I face my audience, whoever they are, I can say, and I can stand on this firm ground and help them not to make the mistakes that I have, because you know what? I'm not perfect. I'm good, but I'm not perfect.
I like that. And it's okay to not be perfect. I think my partner, Miss Diana Gladney, and I, we talk to our people all the time about that striving for perfection thing would just ruin you. It would just absolutely ruin you. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's funny. And then what happens is you'll get mad at the people who decided to not do it perfectly, but they're producing. And then as they're producing, they're growing, and people are just in love with them. And, the accolades start coming out, and you're just like, how can anybody cheer on this? This is mediocre at best. How are they cheering it on? Because they put it out there, and especially in a void or in a space where it didn't exist. Hindsight being 2020, again, looking back at the iPhone 1 and the iPhone 2, it's laughable. But you look at the iPhone 12, it's a marvel. So you had to be willing to put out the original piece when it's not even fully baked. I mean, no apps. If you go back to the day, iPhone 1 had no apps. You had the calculator, the phone, some stocks, some notes, contacts, a couple other cute little things here and there. But people was like, how can I hack this to put on chess? And it's like, oh, look, you can play chess. And now look where we're at today. We got apps like Instagram and Facebook and all of the above things. Exactly. So you have to be willing to just put some things out there and just try, and yeah, I don't know, man. It's just something about getting out of your own way is kind of a big deal. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do, but it's the one thing that we have to do, especially because we owe it to the people behind us to give them something to look forward to. Because again, right now, when we were kids, or sort of what we thought was going to happen, your ways out was going to be basketball, football, or boxing. When I was a kid, me playing golf wasn't even on the radar. At least it is on the radar now. You know what I mean? Although my uncle was a pro at a golf club, you know, he was one of the best out there, but, you know, there was no idea of him becoming pro because Tiger didn't exist yet. Now that Tiger exists, you know, little black kids can be like, hey, I could be a golfer too, right? The idea of one of us becoming a race car driver didn't exist, but that happens now, you know, that already exists. You know, the idea of a female being a winning race car driver, you know, sort of happened because I think Chichi Modani came out when I was in maybe like 12, but like, you know, she was considered the novelty. And then Danica came through in my 20s, and she was like, no, I mean, not hold my beer, because that's just the vernacular, because she definitely wasn't driving that fast. But anyway, it was like, hold my Jamba Juice, and she gets in there, and she like smoking people. And they were like, oh, we thought she was just some cute girl that's a gimmick. Like, nah, you just smell the gas as I float past you while underestimate the power of the force. You know, there was not a lot of concept of being a director, you know, and then now you got Miss Long out there, you got Rhymes out there, you got Latham out there. So, yeah, like, our people in our space have a lot to look up to. So I feel like for us tech folks, especially, we got to do more things. Like, I want to see one of our apps in the top 10 on the Apple page. You know what I mean?
No, and you know what? I am, you know, I haven't really gotten an answer. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know that it's us that has the solution. But I sometimes wonder, I struggle with what's going to make the difference. At what point are they going to realize that the powers that be, that we are just as viable and necessary contributors in these spaces, and we're given the opportunity to be front page on the face of tech, the face of tech startups, industries, app development, game development. At what point do we get our time to shine, and it not just be that 15 seconds, that 15 minutes? It's like you're given scraps, or you're given this one poster boy or girl, male or female, and we have to be satisfied. Well, we gave you this guy. What we gave this one. What more do you want? I mean,
I think it's going to take some, okay, we're going to have to put in some foundational work that kind of hasn't really happened yet. I think about this all the time. So right now we have set up levels of success based on, once you climb out of poverty, the way you show your success is to flaunt things that we're not supposed to have because they're considered expensive, or, you know, they're the acceptables for the nouveau riche class, right? So that the Lambos, the songs, you know, Lamborghini Mercy, you know, the rocking the Philip Pytak, or rocking the latest watch, or, you know, drinking bottles of $600 pop champagne and pouring it all over the floor. Like, those are our indicators, our waypoints for I've made it out, like I can do something, right? Like, still being in love with jewelry as a way to show my power or my status, like, all those things need to go away. And what that should happen is, instead of buying a Lambo, you're going to get all of the, I was like, okay, I need all of the Atlanta artists, because they're blowing up right now. I need all the Atlanta artists to take some of your proceeds and use it to build a technical school, the way our forebears built Tuskegee. We celebrate the HBCUs, but we're not growing the HBCUs. I don't mean send your kids to the already built up HBCU. I mean start another one. Hey, Khaled, and another one. right? So instead of buying another Lambo, we need our guys at the top of the food chain to do what technically LeBron just did it 2 years ago. He started another school, but we need people to copy LeBron. We need to build our own schools. Our own schools where we're going to teach the tech. We're going to teach media production. We're going to teach marketing and business and a lot more than the standard reading is fundamental, how to become a widget worker. So until we as a community start investing into that stuff ourselves and not wait for them, it'll happen, right? We need to rebuild Black Hollywood, right? So instead of celebrating, the anniversary of Tulsa, let's go recreate another Tulsa. Right now we're in a different space. It's going to be, they're going to try, but it's going to be much harder for them to burn it down now.
Oh my goodness. You speak volumes.
They're going to try. Let's not get it twisted.
No.
Right? And I mean, before it gets too late, we start to reach out to the people that can make a difference and be like, no, we're not asking you for handouts. We're asking you for hand up. We need to build this some kind of way, shape, or form. We need to build a Black coders school. We need to build some way for people that are out here to have a way to create their things. And it's funny, the Marvel Universe campus was only recently built in Peachtree, Georgia. And from about Iron Man 2 to now, everything Marvel created comes from that campus. But they just went and built an entire city outside of Hollywood to have their own Marvel space so they could keep as much of their stuff in secrecy as possible. And then they're just cranking out stuff, hiring lots of people. They have their own little city. So we might just have to do that. We might just have to go to Montana and start from scratch. But hey, it has to happen. It has to happen.
And you kind of touched base on this before. You know how you kind of mentioned earlier how you had the few, you could count them on your hand, Black individuals who were already in the tech space, but they were subscribing or communicating to Black people only or urban. So it's kind of like with what you're saying, it appears to be very difficult for us we're always going to be identified as either Black or people of color. Mm-hmm. We're never going to be accepted. We have to make a Black coding school. We have to make STEM programs for underprivileged or the urban. That within itself is, why do I have to be categorized as such? I mean, I'm a human being with the capacity and the interest in learning. How come I can't just be that person who is capable of competing and contributing in this space? Why do we have to have those lines? And they're not blurred. That's what we want.
Bold Sharpie. They're bold Sharpie lines. I mean, even terms like underprivileged is a lie. It sounded like, you gave me just all I needed. But it's funny because you can't tell people that. If you tell them underprivileged is a lie, they get mad. No, you have privileges. Unfortunately, you have to fight 80 times harder for the same thing somebody else might get, but the privilege is still there. So when you say underprivileged in a certain sense, it's like saying that it can't be done. No, it can be done. You're just going to have to fight harder. And it sucks, but fight harder anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, it sucked growing up poor, but I grew up.
Right.
It wasn't
the majority of us did.
Right. It wasn't the end, though. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible, but it wasn't the end. And then you got to work your way to get out. And yes, for right now, we will always have to work that much harder. But then we have to also understand some of the other things that we do to ourselves as well, because we let the self-talk win. You know what I mean? We let the things that they say about us become self-efficating, right? Mm-hmm. And when it fulfills, the order fulfills itself, and you do exactly what they thought they did or whatever. It's going to happen, And even now, we have to be more careful to our response to strife. Like, I know you're mad, but know that they're watching us differently. You know what I'm saying? They're watching us differently. So I know you're mad and I know you're hungry, but busting a window to get something that don't belong to you is not the teaching your grandma taught you in church.
Right.
It's just not. So why'd you do it? Oh, because I could. The opportunity was there. Yeah, but the opportunity doesn't exist for us. It exists for them. They can do it to the Capitol.
Right.
But we can't. And the world is not fair. Just because Cletus can do it don't mean Tyrone can.
Right.
You just can't. So don't.
You know what? Let's talk about that, because there are going to be some individuals, and we understand our struggle, right? I mean, we don't ever have had to meet, but there's certain things in our conversation, in our discussion, that are universal.
Holla.
You know what I'm saying? So let's speak to what you did personally in order to bring yourself out of being the stereotypical individual. I was doing a little bit of research, and I found that how often do you hear a young black person, a black man who knows Japanese and Korean? You know what let's talk about what you did in order to bring yourself out of being considered a stereotype.
People say things like that, and it's funny to me because when I did it, I didn't realize I was doing it, but I just peeled a piece of paper off the wall in college where they said, "Hey, would you like to study abroad in Japan for a year?" I've been a hardcore fan of ninja movies when I was a kid. It sounds so bad, but I was into ninja movies when I was a kid. I was like, I kind of miss that stuff. I would like to go and see some of that. It would just kind of be interesting to know. I guess also one of the things that was beneficial to me is being stationed in Hawaii. Hawaii has a large, Japanese and Korean influence, Chinese influence as well. So I had a deeper understanding of the basics of Japanese culture just from living here than say I would if I lived in Atlanta or, living in DC. Now in DC and New York and, San Francisco, LA, whatever, you do have access to Chinatown, to, Vietnamese town, to Little Japan, Little Tokyo, they call it. You do have those. But a lot of it has been adjusted to match the American side. But too many of us still don't do it. I mean, I want to say something that's kind of hot topic right now, but it irritates me so bad right now. We let other people tell us that somehow the cause of the global strife last year came from an Asian country. So we have people who have been oppressed, people of struggle, going out in the streets right now and wreaking havoc on other people of color because somebody else told them that they were the reason why you're having a problem right now. And the fact that you react to that makes me want to slap every inch of black off of you, because you should know better, because this is what they did to us. They told the straw in the teeth white folks that it was the black folks that was holding them down. So they hate us. To this day, they hate us because the people at the top told the people at the bottom that the people at the bottom next to them that don't look like them are the reason they can't come up. They told the people in the middle that the people in the bottom are holding them down. And the people at the bottom that are darker than them, Black and Latinx, are holding them down further. So the people in the middle are pissed off at us. The people at the bottom are pissed off at us. The people at the top are making money selling the lie. They're making money on the fear. They're making money on the locks. They're making money on the guns. They're making money on the prison. They own the prison too. So they're cleaning house, keeping the middle people and the bottom people pissed off at some other bottom people. We started to make some development. We started to come up. Now we're still in the bottom, but we came up to the point where we got some of our own stuff. So they go, hey, guess what? I'm half Latino, even other Latino people, hey, I got it. Like, you're Latino and you understand the struggle. You're an American Latino, though. The other ones trying to cross the border, they're going to mess up your world.
I'm telling you, it's just
so we turn around and you got Mexicans in Texas talking about we don't want no more Mexicans coming in.
Mm-hmm.
You got Cubans come from Cuba, cross the boat, land in Florida, become Republican to do what? Stop other Cubans from coming in.
Which is ridiculous. Divide. It's that divide and conquer mentality.
Now here's why Black folks, listen clearly to me. You have not a single reason in the world to be pissed off at Asian folks. The thing that everyone knows us for, the one industry that we own, that we control, that we blow up, that we have paved our futures on, the one industry we have is R&B and hip hop. That's ours. It has been trying to be taken away from us for years, but that primarily is ours. Even they say, well, the Jewish people all own the labels or whatever. We fixed that too. Okay, so now we even own all the labels and stuff. So you cannot wear a piece of hip hop gear and then go out and say something sideways to a Japanese person, because hip hop was built on the Roland 808. The 808 was invented by a Japanese man. Reggae, Mrs. Chin put reggae on the map. She's half Jamaican, half Chinese, but reggae the way we know it, reggae wouldn't exist without her. You let somebody else tell you what to do and tell you to act a fool to somebody else. And you even have heard other people make that claim. Well, hurt people. Then why would you effecate that on the next folks? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? Sorry, I get really passionate about this.
Well, no, I mean,
but I'm like,
fine. Yeah.
we out in the streets, like some of our folk hating on other folk. Now, here's what should have happened. And even if you want to go as far as to believe, and I do to some extent, that the people of power seated us and they went and say, well, let me go and crack this first window, because I know if I throw a stake in the ground, certain animals will attack that stake, right? So they knew if they seeded by cracking the window. We've seen the tape. I don't know how I even think about it. I try not to think that hard about it. But after the window got smashed, what every one of us should have done was stood there. But nah, the window got smashed and everybody said, let me run in the Target and get a cheap knockoff $100. Target don't even sell good TVs. Why'd you go in there and steal one? And what does the stealing a TV have to do with you in the pandemic? Or what did that TV have to do with Brother George, who just lost his life? Nothing. That was you being selfish. Had you gone in and got some food, maybe, some water for the crowd, maybe. But no, you was coming out with kicks. You're on lockdown. You going with $400 kicks?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's. I mean,
sorry, I get wound
up. Look,
what
we all feel very passionate about how we feel. Unfortunately, 2020, I'm not going to say that these things haven't been there, but people express themselves in various ways.
100%.
And majority of a lot of it was destructive, whether that's self-destructive or destructive in nature of it affecting others. But I'll say it to you this way. The fact of the matter is we're all human. And people can only take so much. And it's kind of like that concept where you put the Mentos in the Coke and you shake it up or put the lid on it. It has nowhere to escape. It's same scenario with the volcano. Once it's reached its limit or that boiling point, it's going to blow.
True.
And
and I stated that to the people. Yeah. I was like, if they paid us properly, nobody would loot.
There's a lot of, but the thing is, and this is just historical. I mean, this type of behavior, when you have unrest and you have bias and you have anger and you have the levels of poverty, and the disparaging, and people are, you know what, Doc, the thing is people were struggling before 2020 hit.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't condone being reckless, destructive. I don't condone any of that. But I can empathize.
Yes.
You know, we've all been there where it's like, what do I do? Nobody's hearing me. No one is trying to help me. And as the Black community, how long have we been going through this? And yes, sadly, I hate to see us destroying monuments and our own neighborhood stores. I dislike seeing that. Now, mind you, you have individuals who were just out there wreaking havoc just because they don't have a stance.
Yes,
you know,
whatsoever.
There was no stance.
Somebody considered destructing being fun because you know you're not there,
and a lot of that was in the midst of that. Yeah. You know, so unfortunately, you've got a lot of people who really and truly are affected emotionally, financially, in so many ways.
Well, you also think about, too, again, this goes to show why I say that we can't, though. Anybody want to go all the way back to that, you know, quote unquote, July 4th, 1776? Why was we doing that? I mean, technically, they were doing the same stuff that we did last summer, but it was okay when they did it.
Well, but it's always been that way. I mean,
it's back, right?
It's
like the whole country was built like that, right?
That's what I'm saying.
The whole country was built like that, and they go, "Oh, but you didn't, in order to prove your point, you didn't have to take something." Anyway, I think Charlie of Earth, Mountain, and Cloud probably felt the same way you felt when you thought we was doing X. But you squeeze a cannon hard enough, eventually it explodes.
I'm telling you.
And so, yes, it's definitely a combination of both. But the whole point of my rant is, even though you want to, we have to sustain ourselves longer. And yes, it sucks, but it's the fact of life. We have to sustain ourselves longer. We have to be not as quick to let go. I can't stand watching videos where people are lipping off the cops and grabbing their guns and doing all this other stuff. And like, oh, I wasn't afraid for my life with them. You know, it's just verbiage. Again, it's just the way that people have been taught. And, you know, to this same thing, you know, taking it back to tech, I get super upset when people say, well, I'm not a tech person. Neither am I. I'm a Black kid from the ghetto. There's no such thing as a tech person. It doesn't even exist. It's just a made up thing. I just made an executive decision somewhere in the 80s that I was going to learn about this 1.0 stuff because all of the movies on, you know, Star Wars and all of that shit was hot. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. All of that stuff was hot. So it's like, well, the only way that I could possibly get to be like, if the world becomes Star Wars, I want to be ready, or I need to know how to do that stuff. So I immediately went to school, like a couple of days. We get back to school in 77, like after Star Wars came out. Like I went to school and I was like, hey, do we have a computer? And they were like, yeah, we got one in the library, but nobody knows how to use it. I go to the library and I'm like, hey, can I use the computer? And she's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? Who's it for? Well, it's for students. I'm a student. Well, okay, really? I don't know how to use it. Me neither. Give me the book. And then she was like, what? And we had a brand new computer sitting there and like nobody in the school knew how to use it. Some parent donated it because our school was near NASA, you know, and they were just going to let people look at it because computers are expensive and you might break it and you can't touch it. So they didn't even touch it. It was sitting there in a box for like 2 months. And I was like, give me the book, get out of my way. And then, how come you didn't come to class? I was librarian said I could be in here fixing the computer. You know? And so I was the first person to turn that sucker on and get it to print out the little Snoopy calendar. And then that turned into a club. And next you know, there's like 5 of us. And we were the computer nerds. We like the very beginning. But at first, they weren't going to let nobody touch it because, you know, you could type something in bad in the computer and blow it up. Like that was their beliefs. So it's not that I was still a kid from the hood. You know, I was still going home eating wish sandwiches. But for those who don't know, that's 2 pieces of bread and you wish you had some meat. But I was just able to play with the computer a little bit. And then I just moved that to where I am today. So it's just an executive decision, just like you decided to be a tennis person or you decided to be a golf person or whatever. But like in reality, you're just a person. The first word is just what you're doing at that moment in time.
That's right. And that's why, we're all individuals and, you're going to have people who are like-minded. You're going to have people who are not. There's going to be something that speaks to you. It doesn't make you less than or better, or the spokesperson per se for a particular, thing and it doesn't make you a gatekeeper either. It's just the thing that you're into. And
like that gatekeeper. The gatekeepers of the world drive me batty. I'm like, wow, who put you in charge of this? Get out of the way.
They are the spokesperson, the expertise, and they're the ones who allow this to go on and say who and what is acceptable. And it's like, dude, where did that come from? Who gave you the authority?
Oh, so true, man. It's crazy. When that is just one of those words that just like cuts like a small razor to me, because I felt like I pushed against a lot of gatekeepers in my path to this, and I tend to just try to forget that stuff. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like we're in a space right now where a lot of the gatekeepers are no longer in control. So now better than ever, don't feel that you're late to the party. If you want to get started now. If you want to be a creator, start creating. You got something to tell, you got something to show, and it could be anything. Whatever your quote unquote passion is, again, not one of my favorite words, but whatever that thing that moves your needle, like get in there now and start telling it to the world, because somebody wants to hear it. Somebody needs to hear it even better. And you might just be the guiding light for the people that are in your space below you trying to find a way up or looking for a way around, because sometimes we don't get to go up. Sometimes we got to go around.
Right. And the other key to that is not to let someone tell you a space is too saturated.
Oh.
How many brands of tennis shoes do we have out? How many companies, how many designers do we have? How many makeup brands are there out there? How many podcasts, and web developers? The space is not saturated. And the one thing that you will find out in whatever your journey is, whatever it is that you're looking to find your niche and your space where you belong, always understand somebody is always looking for something different.
True.
Because it is so saturated. Not to say you don't have your top three and you're always, your stands for them. But you always want to hear, because people want to hear someone else's perspective, someone else's view. And everybody, the way that they reflect, the way that they teach, it's all different.
It's funny how, fast food market was saturated and then Shake Shack come through, or what is the people with the burritos, Chipotle, they come through, or Chick-fil-A and like all these other things. So it's always saturated until you add one more.
And yours could be the difference of a seasoning.
The
way you fold the burrito.
Right.
But it's crazy. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like people tell you, this market is saturated. You'll never be seen. So you might want to try something. Go get a real job. Go do something that is more promising. That's going to. Well, you know what? You can go do that, but you can also go do this thing that you want. And when you feel like, you know what, I've tried it, I became discouraged, and I'm gonna quit. You make that decision and you be confident in whatever decision you make and whatever changes you make in life. Don't let people, because you just never know. Somebody may know something or see something in you that they feel you are a challenge or you are a threat to them. And people will tell you anything because they want to be there.
Yep.
So you have to do you. You definitely have to do you. And someone told me that there's this book out, and please forgive me about the title, but it's something to the effect of fear it, but do it anyway.
Ooh, that's powerful. That is powerful. You know, it's funny, like I'm on this current thing right now where I like to take back again the meanings of words or readjust the meaning of words. And just go back and rethink the meaning of words. And one thing that people talk about a lot is, you know, something is for all intents and purposes. And I'm like, but people say it so flippantly, but there's a lot of power in just those two words. And, you know, when I was having this conversation with my friend, he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, bro, you just said it. Like, that's the whole nutshell. You do it with intent and purpose. And then we just like pumped the brakes on the whole conversation, move the bus. What you said? I said, yes, you have to do it with intent and purpose. Like, so when you get up and you start your podcast, you got an intent, right? And then you have a purpose, like what drives you, what makes you pop up every day and work on this, even when it is hard. I just came from that 9 to 5. My other person in my house is getting on my nerves because I spend so much time doing this. They starting to get heated because they don't see what the ROI is. And it's like, maybe the ROI is my sanity. Maybe the ROI isn't a check. Maybe the ROI is my sanity. So can I just do this, right? Sometimes you have to reframe it for the people that think in a different method, right? So I remember every time I used to come down to the studio to work on these YouTube videos, there used to be some friction. It's like, hey, it's Law and Order night. No, I got to go record a video. What? You don't spend time with me. You don't watch TV. You don't do this. You don't do that. And I'm like, no, because this is a project, like this has to go. Consider this another job. So I messed up when I said that because she was like, oh, cool. Since this is another job, tell that YouTube to pay the electric bill. And I was like, oh, she got jokes. Okay, lady. So then it was kind of a touchy subject for a few years. And then one day I bought something extravagant for our house. It was like the Dyson or whatever. And then she was like, oh, where'd you buy that? And I was like, what if I told you it was free? She's like, what do you mean it was free? I'm like, well, all of those, YouTube videos I was doing, I got enough Amazon credit. So I bought this, $700 vacuum cleaner for nothing. She was like, shut up. How much Amazon credit you got now? I'm like, well, it's about $3-4 grand. I'm going shopping. Oh, no, you watch Law and Order. I'm going to the basement. It's just like, no, but like, I need this. I was like, I got it. And you got the money and I'll get it. But it's not the point. It wasn't about the money situation. It was about that at first you doubted me. Right. But then after that happened, I'll be the one in the house, like lounging, bag of chips, get ready to watch the game. And she was like, hey, don't you got to record that review? And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, take your butt to the studio. I was like, oh, funny now. You know what I mean? Now that she get it, now she's like, she actually checks me. You being lazy, go record your stuff and come back, So you have to get buy-in if you're podcast or you're doing even just, developing your t-shirt brand in the house or your recipes or whatever you're trying to do in your business. Make sure you do get the buy-in from your partner and from your family or whatever so that they understand when you are doing, like, this is actual work, and one day it will out check your regular work. And then they'll be like, oh, so when I went to her at the beginning of this year and say, hey, I'm selling the business. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. She's like, is that good now? I'm like, yeah. So YouTube's my full-time thing. I sold my business at the beginning of the year to become a full-time content creator.
Congratulations.
You
deserve it. It's a
blessing.
And it's been a long road. It's been a long road. And that first and foremost, what you're saying here, it's about commitment and being committed. Yes.
I'm about to be committed to St. Elizabeth's, though. Sorry, that was a DC reference, my bad.
But, sometimes people can't see your vision. Even those who are closest to us, sometimes they don't understand and they don't see it. They won't see it until it's generating revenue or loosely the fruits of your labor. Right. They don't understand. So that's where it's going to be more important for you to be committed. It has to be, because this is you. and no one else will believe in it until they see something. And unfortunately, that's a flaw of the human condition. That is a flaw. We don't believe it until we see it. You can talk all you want to about it, but I need to see why. Why am I doing this? Or why are you doing this? Why do I need to believe in this? And so there you go. You got to get the grind on.
You know what I do to my family when they do that to me? I tell them, but yet, where are we going Sunday morning? And then like, you can't say that. I just did. It's the same thing.
Right. That's right. Well, see, but now
I'm asking you to have faith in me the same way you have faith in our religion. And according to what I've been told since I was 2, hey, I am him. He is us, right? It's all in us. So if you can have that, you can have the same faith in me.
And
that irritates them because that's mic drop.
Right. And then you can lay it on.
Hit him in the toe with the mic on the way down.
That's what I'm talking about. Faith without works is dead.
Holla.
Doc, I'm going to tell you something. I really and truly enjoyed our discussion. First off, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you. I'm a true fan. And I told you how far I went back.
It's mind-blowing.
Man. But I know that you're doing your own thing now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to allow you to do or give you the space to do right now. I know you have a website, but I want people to know where they can keep up with you. You've been dropping gems throughout the whole and encouragement and empowering people throughout the entire discussion today. But if there's anyone you want to thank, you want to give shouts out, if there is any more encouragement, where we can find you.
You can find me pretty much all over the internets at DOCROCK. I would say the best place to do is to pop up on one of the YouTube live streams. That way you could ask whatever questions and I can answer them. I am currently helping out ECamm, which is our live streaming software that we use to do all of my shows, but I help a lot of other people on to come up, do their shows. And, I just started out like I am really going to attack this mission that I've said many, many times, but I really put forth the effort now is I do want to touch the lives of 1 billion people. And I realize I can't do it by myself. So I'm building the troops of givers who will just go out there and give back to their communities and give, people like we talked about earlier, some place to look up to somebody or look sideways at somebody and go, I see you. I see me in you. I want to do this too. I just want to realize that every one of y'all listening, even someone that's right now probably could be listening to this and feeling like they're just in a tough spot, you're still doing better than someone else. And you pulling yourself up and climbing out of that tough spot is probably going to drag a couple other people with you that need to come up. Like we have you always drag people with you regardless of what you do. You're either dragging them up or you're dragging them down because this is the way humans are. We're much like crabs. We just don't physically link the claws on each other, but we will flow with people. So you're either bringing folks with you on the rise up or you're bringing folks with you on the ride down. So make an executive decision to be looking up.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. If you have not been encouraged, if you have not been informed, I don't know what to tell you. Well, Doc, thank you again. I appreciate you. This has been an amazing discussion. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Continued success. And I hope you can reach those 1 billion people. If there's anything collaboration or anything I can do, I'm here. That's, my ultimate goal is also to share stories and journeys like yours, to help empower and encourage someone. So we both are, on that same path, but continued success and don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
And you're welcome back anytime, sir.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was good fun. I appreciate you.
We've come to the close of another episode of the End User Talk podcast. I hope that what you've heard today will leave you feeling empowered. Thank you for listening. And remember, every day's a training day.